The Future Community begins now, series in 4 videos. Chapter 3. Connected Loneliness, Separated Consciousness. I cannot estimate when you will come across this video series. Search engines and social media pre-select the types of posts they show you. We are all not only trapped in our individual reality tunnels, but also in our own filter bubbles and echo chambers. And often, it is not the most relevant or complex topics, but the simplest ones that find their way to you. The more time you spend on these platforms, the more successfully the algorithm works, at least from the perspective of the corporations. The release of this video series is set for the spring of 2024, roughly 1.5 years after the global breakthrough of ChatGPT. At the current time, the capabilities of AI systems should have penetrated public awareness sufficiently to begin a discussion about a community of the future. Our world population is over 8 billion, with over 5 billion having access to the internet. About 500 cities on the planet have more than 1 million inhabitants. The triumph of AI is continuing in an increasing number of areas at a breathtaking speed worldwide. Early in 2023, YouTube announced multi-language audio support, the ability to upload videos with soundtracks in multiple languages. However, this would have required the creation of such soundtracks, thus entailing considerable additional effort. By mid-year, it was announced that YouTube was testing its AI-powered dubbing feature, which clones the creator's voice, automatically translates the content into over a dozen languages, and synchronizes the respective soundtracks with the lip movements in the video. The emergence of new value patterns, resulting in changes in attitudes and adjustments in behavior, is a lengthy process. These phases not only occur at different times within individuals, but they also largely take place unconsciously, making it even more challenging to approach the subject. While I emphasize the positive aspects of the year, I deliberately left out the downsides. It's important to pay attention not only to what is in texts, but also to what is missing, and to ask oneself why that is. Cognitive dissonance, a sometimes subtly perceptible discomfort, arises when valued mental events cause conflicts. In this case, the beautiful new world I sketched may have collided with your deeply rooted beliefs that are already firmly anchored within you. While the word summer might initially evoke positive associations for both you and me, we both know that globally, July 2023 was the hottest month on record. The mere technical feasibility, for example, of a future community does not yet guarantee its actual implementation. Of 8 billion people, 5 billion may have access to the internet, but 3 billion remain excluded from it. A significant portion of humanity, if they can go online at all, will only find a censored version of the internet. The increasing connectivity density, both in the virtual and in the physical urban space, has not reduced our loneliness. In fact, it is increasing worldwide. As for YouTube, the major innovations are initially rolled out to the most successful influencers. It could take years before they become available to all YouTube creators, if they are ever implemented at all. In the worst case, this could not only lead to a reduction in the already limited diversity of content, but also make it more difficult to find more meaningful content from new YouTube creators. Overall, I have my doubts whether it truly enriches the lives of the planet's poorest individuals if they can access videos about specifications of luxury yachts, villas, and dream cars in their native language in the future. And while we are on the subject, while we should worry less about AI supposedly taking our jobs, we are facing a much greater problem: an outdated copyright system that prevents AI and scientists from accessing scientific papers globally to contribute to the welfare of humanity. As long as we do not find a new way to adequately compensate artists, scientists, designers, and engineers, the vision of a semantic global net remains pure fiction. To return to cognitive dissonance, it could be a useful warning signal. The pain you feel when you touch a hot stove is unpleasant, but it helps you pull your hand away to prevent greater harm. Therefore, it would be more concerning if such a warning were absent. The intriguing question is, are you strong enough to withstand the internal tension? Culture arises through an iterative process and thus builds on our history. Since psychology was introduced as a university discipline only about 150 years ago, while our cultures were established thousands of years ago, we should not be surprised that these cultures occasionally conflict with human nature. New insights are integrated into culture over time, but this process can take years, decades, or even centuries, and in some cases millennia. Therefore, today we all live far behind our potential. In my view, it would definitely be better to adapt the external world to our own nature, rather than unconsciously discarding value systems, attitudes, and behaviors just to regain the comfortable, but in this case deceptive, feeling of consistency. After all, the reason for repression in the second case would still persist. An irreversibly inflamed or already dead tooth causes pain. If root canal treatment is not carried out, it can lead to blood poisoning and thus death. Would you prefer to treat symptoms with constant pain medication intake, or are you willing to endure the rigors of a root canal treatment? Think about it carefully. Not all questionable decisions have to end dramatically. There are many people who are willing to set aside their own memories to feel less loss from the past. And sometimes it seems as if they fare better than those who refuse this action. However, I would not be willing to ignore parts of my life and pretend to have Alzheimer's just to supposedly feel better. It would not do justice to the people who accompanied me in the past. It would not do justice to the preciousness of life itself. But most importantly, it would not do justice to me and the people of my present and future. Decisions are based on our experiences. If we have no access to a part of our experiences, we cannot take that part into account. Your choice. Chapter 4. The grim present and a glimmer on the horizon. The fact that our world is becoming increasingly interconnected is perceived negatively by many. However, I see this as a unique opportunity. From a systems theory perspective, diversity leads to contradictions and thus to instabilities. Instability and high feedback effects, which occur with high connectivity density, are extremely helpful for creativity, or in other words, for the emergence of new cultural patterns, which, if we do it right, can better match human nature. In the past, foreign cultures were often distant to us. Cultural exchange was mostly limited to geographically close countries. When changes reached further away regions, it usually took considerably longer. With the advent of the internet, distance became irrelevant. This remained the case until governments, intelligence services, and corporations artificially intervened. Examples of this are the Great Firewall of China, online publishers with their paywalls, streaming services with geo-blocking, and social networks that block their content for external search engines and unregistered users. The challenge with complex views is that they become harder to understand and communicate as their complexity increases. If our worldview is too simplistic compared to the challenges we face, we lose the ability to find solutions. Complicated systems like airplanes or nuclear reactors can be mentally broken down into their components to grasp their overall functioning. However, if you try to do this with complex systems like humans, patterns in social networks, cultures in general, ecosystems, or the weather, you jeopardize the applicability of your model in reality. In the 11 months that I have been working with ChatGPT on this script, which you are now either hearing as a voiceover in this video series English or German, or reading on my website, my personal challenge was not only to share my solution for the problem I see with you, but also to resonate within you. Furthermore, working on this script in the context of today's world allowed me to gain new intuitive insights. Intuition can be described as the brain's ability to recognize patterns in complexity that go beyond the current limits of our understanding. With the explosive increase in participation in Web 2.0 in recent years, the volume of published content has also multiplied dramatically. Although this theoretically represents an enrichment, in practice it often means the opposite. Valuable and meaningful content is increasingly drowned out by a deluge of trivial and less relevant posts. The challenge no longer lies only in finding information, but especially in discovering the few pearls in the ocean of triviality. The people who could be valuable contacts for us are swallowed up in the virtual world by the flood of data, just as city canyons in our physical environment do. At best, we can see the illuminated windows of the city from a height or plateau, but we can only guess at the people behind the facade. And even if we walked through the virtual and/or physical streets, would we recognize each other? The human cortex is so powerful that we can maintain relationships with 150 to 250 people. However, current studies paint a much bleaker picture. 3/4 of all Americans are dissatisfied with their circle of friends. In the UK, loneliness has even been declared a pandemic. The constant feeling of loneliness is about as harmful as smoking 13 cigarettes a day. Between the ages of 20 and 30, we have the most acquaintances on average, about 25 people. But from the age of 30, we lose one friend every 5 years. Just a few decades ago, it was common to have 5 close friends. Today, the average is only 2, even though the majority of people demonstrably yearn for deeper relationships. We have managed to make our lives steadily more efficient. However, I fear that in doing so, we have not only lost our youthful joy of discovery, but also our awareness of beauty, whether in architecture, literature, or a flexible mind. It is impressive that we established global air travel half a century ago, but 90% of people have become so efficient that they now move only an average of 10 km per day. So why do we need networks that keep showing us the same people, or algorithms based on such profound criteria as I like this or I don't like this? I had always imagined exploring the world as a glorious adventure, with real expeditions across continents and through the oceans. Of course, we could all set aside our drive, our hopes, and our knowledge about the pressing problems of our time. We could give up our desire for deeper meaning, more intense relationships, and intellectual growth, and succumb to disorientation. We could continue to lose ourselves in consumption and just let life go on as before. But we all know what happened to the Titanic, don't we? For me, such a life is unacceptable.